The year was 1955. In the barren heart of the Nevada desert, a convoy of unmarked trucks rumbled along a dirt road that didn't exist on any map. The landscape was endless: cracked earth, shimmering heat, and mountains shaped like sleeping giants. The men inside the trucks were silent, their faces set with a grim determination. They had no idea that they were driving into what would become one of the most secretive and controversial places in American history. The place had no name, not yet, but within months, the world would know it by a number: Area 51. It began not with aliens, but with the Cold War. After World War II ended in 1945, the uneasy alliance between the United States and the Soviet Union collapsed into paranoia and competition. Both nations raced for military supremacy, not just on the battlefield, but in the skies, and soon, in space. The Soviet Union had seized vast amounts of German technology, including jet engines, rockets, and aircraft designs. The Americans had done the same, recruiting hundreds of German scientists under Operation Paperclip, bringing them to the U.S. to work on advanced weapons and aviation projects. By the early 1950s, the CIA and U.S. Air Force were obsessed with one question: how could America see behind the Iron Curtain? The Soviets were testing nuclear weapons in secret. They were building bombers capable of reaching U.S. cities. The Pentagon needed eyes in the sky, something that could fly higher than any enemy radar could reach. Enter the U-2 spy plane project. The U-2, developed by Lockheed Martin's Skunk Works division under the legendary engineer Clarence Kelly Johnson, was a revolutionary idea: a plane that could soar at 70,000 feet, far above Soviet defenses, carrying cameras that could photograph missile bases and nuclear sites from the edge of space. But the project needed a testing ground, somewhere remote, secure, and invisible to prying eyes. In April 1955, Richard M. Bissell Jr., the CIA's deputy director for plans, and Kelly Johnson scoured maps of the American West. They found what they were looking for in the Nevada desert, northwest of Las Vegas, a dry lake bed known as Groom Lake. The site was perfect, flat, isolated, and already controlled by the military as part of the Nevada Test and Training Range, where the U.S. tested atomic weapons. The surrounding mountains formed a natural barrier, shielding it from public view. Within weeks, construction began. Bulldozers carved runways out of the white salt flats. Temporary barracks, hangars, and fuel depots rose from the dust. The workers, mostly contractors from Lockheed and Air Force personnel, lived in harsh conditions, enduring 100-degree heat by day and freezing nights. Everything about the project was classified under the highest secrecy levels. The site was officially listed as a temporary flight test facility. Internally, it was designated Paradise Ranch, a name chosen to boost morale. But on the maps of the Atomic Energy Commission, it appeared as Area 51, one of many numbered zones used to organize testing regions across Nevada. Few people outside the Pentagon even knew it existed. The first U-2 prototype, nicknamed Article 341, arrived at Groom Lake in July 1955. Its wings were so long, more than 100 feet tip to tip, that they had to be assembled on site. The test pilots were hand-picked, most of them Air Force veterans. They were sworn to secrecy, forbidden to tell even their families where they were stationed. Life at Area 51 was grueling and surreal. Pilots flew before dawn to avoid detection by commercial air traffic. Engineers worked around the clock, analyzing each flight, tweaking engines and fuel systems to push the aircraft higher and faster. The desert became their world, a silent, endless proving ground where history was being written under the veil of shadows. But secrecy had its price. Because the U-2 operated at such extreme altitudes, its presence began causing strange sightings. Commercial airline pilots, who typically flew at 20 to 30,000 feet, occasionally reported bright, silvery objects streaking across the upper atmosphere, moving at impossible speeds. The Air Force, unwilling to reveal the U-2's existence, logged many of these reports as unidentified flying objects. By the late 1950s, UFO sightings across the American Southwest had skyrocketed. Newspapers ran sensational headlines. Civilians claimed they'd seen flying discs and glowing orbs. The government, trapped by its own secrecy, allowed the myths to grow. Behind the scenes, the U-2 program expanded rapidly. In 1956, the first reconnaissance missions over the Soviet Union began. The plane performed flawlessly, photographing missile installations, nuclear facilities, and air bases. The intelligence gathered was invaluable, giving Washington its first clear picture of Soviet capabilities. But the success came with danger. On May 1, 1960, a U-2 piloted by Francis Gary Powers was shot down deep inside Soviet territory by a surface-to-air missile. The incident caused an international crisis. The U.S. could no longer deny that it was spying. President Eisenhower was forced to admit the truth, and the U-2 program was publicly exposed. For most people, that should have been the end of Area 51, but it was only the beginning. In the aftermath, the CIA doubled down on secrecy. The world's attention had shifted from the skies to outer space, but the enemies of America were still watching. A new project was already taking shape at Groom Lake, one that would push the boundaries of aviation even further: Project OXCART. The goal was simple and nearly impossible: build a plane that could fly at Mach 3, over 2,000 miles per hour, at altitudes above 90,000 feet. It had to be invisible to radar, untouchable by missiles, and capable of crossing continents in minutes. The engineers at Lockheed Skunk Works once again rose to the challenge. Their creation would become one of the most extraordinary aircraft in human history, the A-12, the secret predecessor to the famous SR-71 Blackbird. By 1962, the A-12 was ready for testing, and Groom Lake, still officially non-existent, was the only place secure enough to test it. But what was happening inside Area 51 was no longer just about planes. The technology being developed there, from radar-absorbing materials to high-temperature titanium alloys, was decades ahead of its time. And because no one outside the program could be told, the veil of mystery surrounding the base only deepened. Civilian pilots began spotting strange, dart-like shapes streaking through the desert sky. Sometimes they glowed with heat. Sometimes they moved faster than anything imaginable. Local newspapers again filled with UFO headlines. Once more, the Air Force stayed silent. To protect its secrets, the government expanded restricted airspace over Groom Lake, creating a massive no-fly zone known as R4808A. It became one of the most secure regions on Earth. Even military pilots from other bases were forbidden from entering it without special clearance. The culture of secrecy grew so intense that even within the Air Force, few knew exactly what was happening at Area 51. Documents were classified under multiple layers of code names. Flights were scheduled at night. Workers were flown in from Las Vegas aboard unmarked aircraft, a mysterious shuttle service later nicknamed Janet flights. By the mid-1960s, the CIA's OXCART program had achieved the impossible. The A-12 aircraft reached speeds exceeding Mach 3.3 and altitudes above 90,000 feet, higher than the edge of space. Its sleek, black frame could cross the continental U.S. in less than an hour. But the program was so secret that even most members of Congress didn't know it existed. Area 51 had become more than a testing site. It was now a symbol of absolute secrecy, a black hole where information entered but never escaped. As America's Cold War deepened, new projects arrived. Prototypes of the F-119 Nighthawk, stealth drones, and even experimental radar systems were all born there. Each one added another layer of mystery, another reason for speculation. And yet the world outside continued to wonder. UFO believers pointed to strange lights. Skeptics demanded answers. Journalists hit walls of silence. But deep inside that forbidden desert, the truth was far stranger. Not because of aliens, but because of how far human ingenuity had gone under the cloak of darkness. Area 51 wasn't hiding little green men, it was hiding the future. Area 51 isn't just a secret base, it's the hidden heart of America's Cold War legacy, where innovation met silence and the future took flight under a shroud of mystery. Even today, the desert keeps its secrets. And the truth? It's still out there, waiting to be unrevealed. Like, share, and subscribe to Unrevealed Facts, where history's mysteries